Good afternoon and welcome to another presentation by Jennifer. Today is the 17th of October 2012. Jennifer did her first presentation to the senior management team on the 29th of December 2011. A lot has happened in the financial world since then, and therefore Jennifer is going to give us an update.
Thank you, Tony. It is clear to me that the majority of the population is asleep economically, and that's just the way the elite like it. Should they start to wake up, the elite will try and get them to sleep again. Hence the title of my presentation is, Wake Up, Time for Your Sleeping Tablet.
Jennifer, you make me laugh. You are a bit of a comedian on the quiet.
Thank you, Andreas. It's important that we keep our sense of humor. Okay, I wish to conduct a straw poll. Hands up if you think we are on the road to recovery financially. I seem to remember from my previous visits that Steve and Tracy reflected the views of many people.
Since your first presentation, I do not see matters getting worse. Indeed, they are getting better. Yesterday it was announced that the Consumer Price Index fell to 2.2% for the month of September, and only today it was announced that unemployment fell by 50,000 in the UK.
I agree with Steve. I had to wait 3 weeks before I could get my iPhone 5. The demand was very high for that phone. People are still spending.
I agree that people are still spending, but many are spending beyond their means and buying goods and services that they want rather than what they need. They simply have their priorities all wrong. Steve, you have said that the Consumer Price Index fell to 2.2% in September. Do you really believe that?
Of course, they are government official statistics.
Steve, have you ever wondered how they measure inflation?
No.
There are three main measurements. They are weighting, substitution and hedonics. The government have a basket of goods that they use to measure inflation. Let's say gas prices rise. Indeed, we can use the current rise in British gas that was just announced as 6%. The government will attach a certain weighting to this. If they don't weight it high, it will have a lower impact on the inflation rate. Let's say you went to a rather expensive restaurant, but could not continue to go as the prices were going up. You may elect to go to a cheaper restaurant and pay the same price as you did previously. This is known as substitution. When it comes to calculating the inflation, it will appear that there was no inflation because the price for going out for a meal was the same. With regard to hedonics, let's say you bought a television last year and bought another one this year that was slightly more expensive. It may be shown that there was no inflation in this measure, as the new television would have more functions. So you see, the inflation rate as measured by governments is not a true representation of our standard of living. Our standard of living is falling much faster than the headline inflation rate.
George is correct. Steve, you mentioned that the unemployment rate fell by 50,000 in the UK. Have you done any research as to what that means?
I am not sure what you are getting at.
Have you stopped to think what type of jobs are available? You have got to remember that we are now competing globally for our jobs. We also have to remember that we are relatively rich to the rest of the population in the world. We now have multinational corporations who can pick and choose their labor. This will cause a worsening in our pay and conditions. The working population will get poorer as the multinational corporations get richer as their labor unit costs fall.
Steve, you always seem surprised when you hear news like this, but it soon wears off and then you are back to your normal self, believing everything is rosy.
I can assure you that matters are not rosy. I would like you all to have a look at the picture behind me. If you are not worried by it, you should be.
The guy in the picture does not look too bad.
Ah, Tracy, love your sense of humor. There are two charts in the photo behind me. Can anyone tell me what they represent?
Yes, the top chart represents the sovereign debt in the US, and the bottom chart represents the global population growth. They are both rising at the same rate.
That's correct, George, and it is a very worrying thought.
Why is that?
Our illusion of wealth was created by unsustainable debt. It rose to a point of ridiculousness.
Jennifer, you are now making me laugh. You just sound like Gregory Mannarino, and that's a fact.
We simply borrowed money from the future to live a lifestyle beyond our means. Unfortunately, that lifestyle is coming down to earth with a massive bump.
That's right, and that is why the authorities have been making plans in the US. It is no coincidence that the National Defense Authorization Act was passed into law on the 31st of December 2011, and recently the House Resolution 6566.
I wish to conclude that we need to prepare ourselves for a different future, because once governments are unable to continue with quantitative easing for whatever reason, a major depression will follow.
Thank you, Jennifer, for a most informative talk.